Aloha and welcome to the Living in Hawaii show. Thank you all so much for joining us today. My name is Carol Spearling. I am your host here at the Living Hawaii Ohana. And today we have a great topic that we're going to be going over, talking about inter-island shipping, how to get there, inter-island, getting to Oahu, getting to Kauai, getting to Maui, and also if you want to ship your car, if you want to ship furniture and that type of thing. But before we get started, I'm going to introduce our contributors. We're going to start off on the island of Kauai. Ronnie, good morning. Welcome. You're on mute.
That's a good way for you not to hear my dog. Happy Aloha Friday from the beautiful sunny this morning at Garden Island.
Great. Thanks so much, Ronnie. Great to have you here. We're going to be talking about something I think you're going to know a pretty good amount about the ferry service that tried in Kauai. We're going to bring that up here in a moment. And Misty, good morning. Misty Padilla here from the Big Island. Many of you know Misty. She occasionally hosts the live Friday Living in Hawaii show. Misty, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Carol. Thank you for having me. Aloha, everyone.
Great. Thanks, Misty. Misty's a longtime resident here in Hawaii. We're all been living in Hawaii for many, many years, so we all have a lot of good input. And then from the island of Maui, Chelsea, good morning.
Aloha, Carol. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to talking about this and letting everybody know what it's like living on separate islands.
Awesome. Great, Chelsea. Thanks. So we're going to start off right now, and we're going to start by talking about inter-island flights. We're going to talk about how we get from point A to point B, what is the most efficient way, and what options we have out there. Starting off, inter-island flights. We have different airlines. And Misty, talk to us. I know you travel quite a bit. Let's hear about what we have for inter-island.
Sure. So, of course, as you can see here, we have the options of Hawaiian Airlines, Southwest, and Mokulele Airlines. My personal preference has been Hawaiian Airlines for quite some time. Prior to that, I'm sure we can all agree it was Aloha Airlines, which we truly, truly miss. On the other note, I am very humble and proud to say that my auntie was actually the original founder of Mokulele Airlines, and they are also a great carrier to utilize in between islands. But yes, Hawaiian Airlines is my preferred carrier for my family and I, and we're also grateful that Southwest also offers other options in the event where times get really busy, and we'll dig deeper into all of that. But it's nice to have some options, more than one. So I'm super grateful for all of that.
That's great. And Misty, now Mokulele, they're based, they do all the whole state, but they're a smaller aircraft and they can get into like some of the smaller airports. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. So I was able to utilize Mokulele when we fly to the island of Lanai, and it is definitely a smaller charter plane. Consider it as like your local luxury plane. That's what we like to reference it to. But yes, Mokulele Airline, it's safety is super important to me and my family, and they have definitely proven in their records to be safe as well. I know a lot of people get a little sketched out with riding smaller planes, but it is definitely an experience, and I would definitely do it and support Mokulele again. I've utilized Mokulele also when we would fly to Maui. To do some of our team workshops, we would also utilize Mokulele. So yeah, definitely a trusted carrier that I would highly recommend.
That's great. And I think Mokulele also is one that you don't have to go through the whole security thing in TSA like you do with Southwest and Hawaiian. So that's a perk.
That is correct. Definitely a perk. You can just hop, skip, and jump right over there, get through your check-in process, and just go ahead and board the plane. And before you know it, you are landing safely at your destination.
Awesome. Great. And then Chelsea, we have, as Misty mentioned, we have Hawaiian and Southwest, flights daily to outer islands, inter-island. What can you tell us about how many flights they do a day and how does the whole schedule work?
So I know there are several flights that go both between Hawaiian Airlines and Southwest. Now, when we're talking about going to outer islands, like for example, going into Hilo, because I fly into Hilo quite a bit from Maui, there's only 2 that are offered on Hawaiian Airlines that's direct. The rest would all be connecting through Oahu and then going to the Big Island. I mean, to the Big Island. I think that's true for Kauai and also for Kona side as well.
Yes. So if you want to do a direct flight, it's limited, say from Kona to Kauai, it's limited, or from Maui to Hilo, limited. Otherwise, you go to Oahu, have a little layover, get on a different plane, or you stay on the same plane but still have to stop, and then you continue on from there. And those are pretty regularly scheduled throughout the course of the day.
Yes, it is. I think it's like every hour there's something that goes between Maui and Oahu, and then it can connect you to the different islands, the different outer islands.
Okay, great. Cool. Thank you. And Ronnie, can you help us with like cost? Do you fly often? Can you kind of fill us in a little bit about how ticket prices work? If you book early, can you get like a coupon book? Anything like that?
I can't speak to that really. I would say if you're interested in going inter-island a lot, then fly Hawaiian to the mainland and you'll build up miles, and you can fly pretty affordably. For me, Hawaiian is kind of my go-to. I have fond memories of when I moved here 20 years ago, and America Transair, who had a relationship with Pleasant Hawaiian Holidays, they offered a yearly pass to the islands. So for $800, you could fly as many times as you wanted. And then it went up to a whopping $1,200. So I remember my first year here, I went back and forth a lot, and then I realized I think the rhythm here on Kauai and the pace was a little more suitable than Los Angeles. I think, each one of them are good options. When I have flown Mokulele, and I haven't flown them in a number of years, it was, kind of I'll say a less luxurious experience, a longer walk to the airport, and not kind of the service that I personally would like. The one limitation we have, or maybe it's a second in terms of direct flights, although keep in mind, these are very short flights, right? If you look at the schedule, the flight from Kauai to Oahu might take 40 minutes, but you're actually only in the air about 16 or 17 minutes. So it's barely enough time to do anything. But they don't fly all day long, right? So if I have a business day, I might catch the 6 a.m. flight to Oahu, and I've got to get back by maybe 7 or 7:30. There aren't flights late into the evening. So depending on the situation, and if that means I need to rent a hotel room for a night, then the travel can become a lot more expensive. And the only other thing I'd say is when you're traveling to the neighbor islands, even though ideally you want to take a direct flight, there are more options going to the largest in population island, Oahu. And oftentimes you'll go there and you'll take one of these carriers to the island that's your final destination.
All right, great. And that is a thing that all of the airlines do have websites. You can go on there, you can log in, sign up for the flight that works best for you, and really make it easy. Of course, checking in, booking early is a good thing because you want to make sure you get the flight that you want. And then also keeping in mind holiday travel. A lot of us have family on other islands, and so it's really important to, if you're going to travel, say from Big Island to Oahu, and you want to be there Christmas Eve, make sure you book early so that you can make sure that you get there Christmas Eve instead of having to wait until another time. So that one is super important. Okay, so I'm going to just shift gears a little bit from airlines to boats. Ferry service, in a lot of places in the world, there are ferries. And I was in Washington State and going out to the Vancouver Islands and, being around there. They have a ferry service that's wonderful, very comfortable, kind of almost luxurious. And here on Hawaii, we don't really have a whole lot. Now, Chelsea, I think in Maui, you can kind of fill us in a little bit of what you have available there.
Right. So we have a ferry that goes from Maui to Lanai. And that's actually the only one that we have right now. Molokai did have one that went from our one of our harbors to Molokai, but that has stopped. And in recent talks, I've heard that the County of Maui is looking to acquire a couple of ferry boats so that they can reestablish that connection between Maui and Molokai. So those residents have the opportunity not just to go on Mokulele Airlines, but to also utilize the ferry to come to Maui to do their shopping. Because on Molokai, there's no big box store. So a lot of the residents come to Maui to do their shopping at Costco, which is what the Lanai residents also do. And they utilize the ferry to bring back all the stuff that they purchase. So that's going to be nice to have when the ferries get reestablished between our Tri-Isle County.
So the ferry that services for you folks, is that large enough for them to bring their vehicle on, or is it a walk-on only and then they have to Uber or something once they reach your island?
Yes, so it's not large enough for a vehicle. So they do have to arrange for rent a car or Uber. A lot of residents that I speak to, they utilize Turo service because a lot of the Turo people will actually drive the cars to the harbor for them, so they'll meet them there.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you very much for that. And now, Ronnie, I have a feeling maybe you know a little bit about the ferry service that they were originally, the super ferry that they were originally talking about doing inter-island, and it didn't last long. You know, Chelsea's ferry, a little bit on the smaller side. The super ferry that was talked about several years ago was the full-size ferry that you could drive on, drive off. And there were a lot of concerns about that. I know they originally tried it into Kauai. I don't recall that they really ever tried the service here to Big Island. Ronnie, can you fill us in anything about that process and what happened and why it didn't come to fruition?
I certainly can. I will say that my wife and my brother-in-law got to travel on it in the short time it was running, and they said it was like being on a glamorous Starbucks, and they really, really enjoyed it. But there were a plethora of reasons, to be sure. There were all the environmental concerns and how it would affect the whale population and collisions with the animals and damage to the animals. There were legal issues, from the state. A lot of times when people want to do things in the island, they need to do an environmental impact study. Maybe that's true nationwide. These people built this ferry. There was, contention about it was coming from a military supplier, and there was a lot of kind of political blowback about what the real intention was. Were there other motives aside from the travel? I mean, I remember one of the guys that was the marketing person for the Super Ferry speaking in 2006 to our Rotary Club in Kapa'a, talking about we're the only island archipelago on the planet that doesn't have ferry service. So that's kind of unusual. But on Kauai, it certainly was intense. When the ferry came here one time, you had like this whole huge, massive circle in the harbor of people with their surfboards and arms locked, and they literally put a human barricade up to the super ferry, and ultimately, it really never had financial viability. There was no way there was going to be enough travel between the islands and Maui and Kauai and Oahu to support it, given the cost of building the thing. So in 2009, they went bankrupt. And I guess there were also concerns, here, I can't speak to like daily life or the culture since I spend so little time on the other islands. But when you're on an island like this, people say, well, what's a good neighborhood? Is there crime there? And I think, you can't get away with anything, right? If you take someone's car here, where the heck are you going to go?
Sure.
Now, if you could drive it onto a super ferry, maybe that would be different. And there were also concerns about invasive species or creatures or, coming over in people's cars. So there were too many concerns. And I would say the community blowback, the political blowback, the financial lack of viability, obviously it didn't last. But Carol, do you have information that there's an effort going on to get a ferry established again? I mean, it would be cool.
I haven't heard of anything happening, coming up. It would be, and it may be a situation that in the future, this is going to be revisited because our population has grown so much. And so that, it may be something that, people want to get going again. I don't foresee it like in the next 5 years, but it could be something that's on the horizon at some point in the future. So it's just kind of an interesting.
One thing I just wanted to touch back on our first subject, just to make note that Alaska acquired Hawaiian Airlines, and I just saw something in the mail about a special promotion or program for people that live in Hawaii, special discounts because of that merger together. And I don't know the specifics of that. I know probably we can use our Hawaiian miles on Alaska, and I like flying Alaska to the Northwest because they have a lot of direct flights. So I just wanted to bring that point up. I forgot.
Well, that's good to know. That's good to know. And having that recent merger and everything, and we're going to see how that progresses into the future. If maybe we'll get more aircraft, so we'll have more flights. We'll have more stuff going on. But thank you for your information about the ferry and its impact. We'll see what happens in the future. So moving on, I kind of we talked about moving ourselves inter-island. So now I'd like to talk about moving furniture, supplies, how things move inter-island, and what is the best way if you want to ship your car. What if you, on an outer island, go to Oahu and go to a furniture store and want to bring your furniture back? Misty, can you talk a little bit about what availability as far as barge services and or air cargo services?
Sure. So, as you all know, everything and all things through Hawaii is very, very expensive. That is the first thing people will always say is everything is so expensive. It's really, really priced high. And yes, it is. We live on an island. I do believe that our resources are very, very limited. So we just got to get creative, in utilizing what is available to us. As far as shipping goes, when it comes to vehicles, we operate out of one harbor, and it does get difficult. I just think if you manage expectations and prepare well in advance, expect to pay a pretty penny if you need things expedited. Other than that, just consider it a longboat to China and just be patient. We do, like I said, operate out of just one harbor. Actually, two. I don't know if Hilo operates. You can totally speak into that as well. But for us here on Hawaii Island, we operate out of Kauai High, and we do get vehicles there. We do get furniture, bigger parcels through our resources there. But yeah, we're just very limited. If you do buy a car inter-island, I know Oahu is also our main hub. Customer service is very great. They'll see you through from, like we say, contract to closing. They provide all the resources and make it very seamless for you. I did order maybe twice a vehicle from the mainland, and that process was very good as well. Then again, that was like 10 years ago, so things have definitely changed. But bottom line to me is, again, manage expectations, be patient, manage your time, and just know that we're very, very limited, but it's not impossible. You kind of just work around the way we do island life here.
Great. Thanks, Misty. Well, I know for inter-island barge service, we have Young Brothers, and that is Young Brothers services the entire state. They are based out of Oahu. That's their main hub. And then they do service Nawiliwili in Kauai and Kahalui in Maui. And they also, I believe they go to maybe once a week only into maybe Molokai, or it has to get transferred over. Chelsea, you probably know it better on that. But then also on the Big Island to Kauai High and to Hilo. I know on Big Island, it's twice a week service into these two ports, because they do bring produce and groceries and everything. The only time there's really a delay is if there's big surf, and it's hard to obviously transport cargo on a ship when the waves are 20 feet tall. So they may be delayed on that kind of a thing, but otherwise twice a week here into Big Island. And Young Brothers also can bring your car. When you're talking about coming from the mainland, mostly you're going to have Matson or Pasha is going to be the transport coming from the mainland. But we're kind of talking about inter-island today. And so it really just depends upon what you're bringing over, but Young Brothers is really the preferred choice. And then you can go directly to Young Brothers in any of the ports and pick up the products yourself if it's smaller and handleable, or you can contract with a trucking company to bring it to you if it's a large parcel or if it's a container, that type of thing. And then we also have air cargo, Hawaiian Air Cargo. Chelsea, Hawaiian Air Cargo, FedEx, UPS. Can you tell us anything about those services?
Yes. So FedEx and UPS, they do go to all the outer islands, and it's useful for smaller parcels that you're wanting to send inter island. And depending on the size, rates can be from $10 to $25. So it's a really good service to use if you're trying to ship something small. And so Young Brothers does go to Molokai and Lanai, but then they don't come from Maui, which you'd think they would. They do come from Oahu and then go directly to those ports in Oahu. I mean, from Oahu to Molokai and Lanai.
And do they just once a week, or are they twice a week like the other larger islands?
So let's see. They just put out a new schedule. So it looks like they do it twice a week, Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
Oh, that's awesome.
Molokai and for Lanai, and then for Molokai, they'll do it Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. So they have 4 days.
That's great. That's great. I wonder if, just depending upon this, if they send the same size ship or stuff, it's kind of hard to say, but it's great that they do service that, because Young Brothers has been a lifeline for all of us here in the state that really keeps us moving, and we're so thankful to them. And then, of course, there are other private freight companies that we can use. Some of them are freight forwarders that handle freight coming back and forth from the mainland. You have it here locally in the state. We have, if you're moving island to island, we have island movers, and they really specialize in helping you move your household or your cargo or anything from one island to another, and they're super helpful. And the transit time, barge service, like I said, into Big Island, Hilo, and Kauai High, it's 2 times a week, Tuesdays and Fridays is into Kauai High. I'm not exactly sure on Hilo's schedule, but they do make sure that they keep coming in on a real regular basis. And so it's just something good for our islander ohana to keep in mind that, if you're moving, allow, as Misty was saying, allow time, be patient, plan ahead, and be ready, just because sometimes there are delays, as I mentioned, weather. And if you're working with a barge service, if there's 20-foot waves, you really don't want your stuff on that barge, because it might end up at the bottom of the ocean. So honestly, just kind of thinking about that. So from here, we're just going to kind of go into the pros and cons of some of what we were just talking about. The frequency of inter-island flights, obviously the pros are that you have multiple flights a day. As Ronnie said, the quick flight times, it may say that it's 40 minutes, but your actual time in the air is so much less. And just being able to do that, and having that availability. And then, of course, the cons, as Misty also said, can be expensive, especially for last minute. The cost of inter-island flights, Ronnie was saying back in the day, you could get deals and you could get packets. I don't know so much anymore. Misty, can you kind of fill anything on prices and bookings and anything on that?
It's very competitive to how the market typically runs. During peak season, you definitely expect to pay more during peak season. Definitely keep your radar out. Whenever you hear of any deals or specials, any flash sales, turn on all your notifications. They do have great deals. You just got to take advantage of them. But one thing that I really caution everyone is, when you do book these deals, you have to look into the fine print, because a lot of the times they either won't offer refunds, you can't transfer. There's always something in the fine line that you do need to pay close attention to. And that ends up being painful and more expensive in the long run, because you think you have a deal, and then, life occurs, and then you got to make changes, and then you can't, and then you're stuck, and, all the things that just happen. But, for the most part, we all talked about, is we just manage our expectations, allow yourself time, and then also travel with extra budget. I don't recommend the penny pinching budget where you're just traveling down to the penny, because you got to allow extra cushion for emergencies. There's times at the airport. I used to work for Alaska Airlines for 6 years, and I absolutely love it. But there's times where we see families get stranded when flights get canceled because of weather, whether it's incoming flights or outgoing. You never know what the world will throw at you. And families get stuck. They don't have enough money to go get an extra car or room because they've already spent thousands of dollars coming to Hawaii. And we see all of this happen. So I just caution everyone, it's just be prepared. For the deals that we get. Like, I have a corporate account through Hawaiian Airlines, and I encourage those, if you have a business and travel frequently inter-island, look into those options, because with the corporate account you get a discount. You have to complete X amount of trips per year. You can use your mileage, at the same time you get free bags, no change fees, so there's a lot of benefits that go with it. And we've had it for like maybe 15 years now. We've never had a problem with falling short. We open it up to our families and friends, if we ever don't meet our quota. But, look into all those options, look into your corporate accounts. I encourage the TSA pre-check and clear, all the things that, help your travel be a little more easy. It really, really does help.
That's good to know, Misty, especially about like baggage, luggage, right? That if you're going on there thinking that you can take 2 bags and then you get there because of the fine print and it says you can only have 1 carry-on or something like that, that's huge, because a lot of families, you have kids and you have a lot of people, and one of the perks of living on an outer island is going shopping, going to Oahu and going shopping. And I'm sure all of us have had a great time shopping, and then it's the trick of getting it all back and fitting it all in your suitcase. And when you get to the airport and they say, oh, well, sucks to be you, you got to pay an extra $200 for that bag, that kind of hurts. And, Misty, bringing up the corporate account, what a huge thing, because we do have a lot of folks here, that are watching the show that are thinking about living in Hawaii, that maybe work remotely and want to move to Hawaii and work remotely, but they still need to fulfill their obligations to their jobs. So getting that corporate account, being able to travel inter-island, being able to travel, with Hawaiian Airlines with that account, that's huge. It's a huge money saver. And like you said, the TSA pre-check, all of that really, really, really makes a difference. So thanks for bringing that up, because I think that's going to be very helpful for a lot of folks.
Another thing I wanted to make mention is, again, considering, we live on an island, we don't operate 24/7. So a lot of the times if you come in and your flight's delayed, there's nowhere to eat. Hotels will be open for front desk, does operate 24/7. But as far as like trying to get an Airbnb, rent a car, all those places shut down, so again, just manage your expectations and just plan as best as possible, knowing that we are on an island and our resources are very, very limited.
Yeah, that's good advice, Misty. Thanks very much for that, because a lot of folks moving here, living in Hawaii, this is why we do this show. This is why we just try to educate everyone so that everybody can understand what we as residents go through. But we know, and we've learned over time, that this is the things that we need to be aware of. And so that's why we do the show like this, so that we can share with the Living in Hawaii folks that are watching today, so that they understand the patience thing and the planning ahead thing. So I want to just switch gears just a little bit, because between air travel and then the ferry service and everything, there's always talk about environment and how environmentally sustainable inter-island travel and shipping and that, and the challenge that comes along with these. And if you guys can fill in, Ronnie, you have anything about any environmental impacts that airplanes or ferries or anything have on the environment?
Well, when you ask about the environment, I mostly think about all the plastic in the ocean and all the nonprofits that spend time cleaning it up. But I did want to say one thing that sort of ties into this whole conversation. When I moved here from Southern California, my friend said, don't bring anything. Okay. So I went on Craigslist and I sold my furniture. And my interpretation of not bringing anything was 11,000 pounds of stuff in a Matson container. And so for those of you who are watching this that aren't here yet, but you want to live here, I would strongly consider what I just said. I'm sure on each one of the islands, there are very affordable ways. There are many shops that will take furniture from the Four Seasons or Marriott and stuff that has to be replaced every couple of years. You could put very nice furniture in a home, a 3-bedroom home, for under $10,000. So while we've talked about those shipping options, I think it's important to know that if you're coming here, think twice about what's really essential, because you can get lots of things here and you can get them affordably, and of course they're island style. And the other thing I wanted to say before going back to the environment is, what is ridiculous is shipping with UPS and FedEx, except if you have Amazon Prime. I don't know how they do it, but they seem to manage to do it. I know the last time I ordered my real estate signs from the mainland, they were like $800 for the signs and $900 for shipping.
Ouch.
So the price at FedEx and UPS, all of the major carriers from the mainland is really, really expensive, and I don't think there's any way around it. Environmentally, the main thing that comes up for me is this notion of over-tourism in the island, and particularly on Kauai. The county hasn't been very smart about expanding our resources and expanding our roads. And so, environmentally, the impact here is that we don't have enough infrastructure. We don't have enough infrastructure to build enough housing, water and sewer and all that stuff. So while it's great for the tourism industry, and it's great for people that own Airbnbs and vacation rentals, because the more travelers, the more rate you can charge and the more income you can generate, there is that notion of balance. And I remember during COVID, it was a very prominent conversation from leaders in the different communities of all the islands, but I don't think anything ever came about to mitigate that. So that's the main thing I think of with environment.
All right. Thanks, Ronnie. I know we've been kind of talking about the transportation side of it and what the impacts of, the aircraft and the ferry service have. And we touched on, as far as the ferry service, concern about harming sea life and, transporting invasive species and that type of thing. And I think, since the super ferry has gone away, I don't think Chelsea and Maui, you guys haven't had any issues with any of the ferries, with sea life and that type of thing?
No, not at all. And actually, it's really neat when you ride the ferry to Lanai. It's all you'll see, like hundreds of dogs just following the ferry. I think they like the vibrations of the water with the propeller spinning back. So it's a really beautiful scene to take a trip on the ferry from Maui to Lanai.
Wow, that sounds beautiful. And just being out, I remember being on the ferry, as I said, up in Vancouver, and, just, it's so beautiful. And they do such a nice job with that. And, and I think that, towards sustainability, I think Hawaiian Airlines has been investing more so in fuel efficient aircraft and just trying to lessen our carbon imprint, here in the state. We're all very, I think, environmentally aware, because we do live in Hawaii, we're outside a lot, that it's a very important thing to know what's going on. Ronnie mentioned all the plastic in the ocean and the nonprofits that are cleaning it up. And those are all things that that's a deal. And it's unfortunate that some people just don't treat our environment the way it should be treated and don't respect it as such. And, we're always talking about reintroducing the ferry systems and green shipping methods. We're just trying to make sure that as we go forward into 2025 and beyond, that, we are always thinking forward and thinking positive about how we can lessen the impact on our environment. And with the shipping and everything, I hope that this has been really helpful. I'd really love to get some closing thoughts from everybody. Misty, can you give me any closing thoughts on what we talked about today?
Sure, Carol. Again, with everything that we do here, it's always important that we always do things pono, in the right way. And I highly recommend, if you folks have a chance to, go to YouTube and look up the video Travel Pono. Hawaiian Airlines produced it a few years ago. It's absolutely beautiful. And it just really embodies everything, with traveling to Hawaii, all the things that you are able to do and contribute to the land. Again, we live on beautiful islands. We live in paradise, and we'd like for it to remain, paradise to us, because this is our home. And I believe if everyone does their part in contributing to the beauty of Hawaii, Hawaii will continue to remain the way it is. So if you can, take a look at that video, Travel Pono. You come with aloha, you do things the right way, and again, the land will just naturally and gracefully, take care of you in return. So I leave you with all of that.
That's a great tip, Misty. Thank you so much for that. And we are going to put a link in our bio when we publish the show to that video, so everybody can easily access that. So thank you for that. Chelsea, some clothing thoughts?
So I just wanted to touch on that program that Ronnie mentioned that Hawaiian Airlines is putting out. It's called the Huaka'i program. And so it's for Kama'aina, or if you live here, they're doing special benefits. So if you sign up for their Hawaiian Miles, be a Hawaiian Miles member, you actually do get now a free checked baggage starting next year, January 8th, 2025, when you're flying inter-island. And then also, if you would have the Hawaiian Airlines World Elite MasterCard, then you get 2 bags. So that's a total benefit. And then they're also going to be rolling out quarterly discounts for all the Hawaiian Airline members. So if you want to take a stab at that deal, then go ahead and join the Huaka'i program that Hawaiian Airlines has to offer.
That's great, Chelsea. Thanks for that tip. And, all of these things, anybody watching the show, we welcome you to leave a comment, reach out to us. We're here to help you. We're here to give you any advice and information regarding living in Hawaii. Ronnie, you're up next as far as any closing thoughts, please.
I have 2 closing thoughts. One, just to build on Chelsea, Kama'aina is a Hawaiian word that originally, it means child of the land, and it has some sacred background. We tend to use it more casually. It means you live in this state. So when you get over here, don't be shy and ask for the Kama'aina discount, because most stores and shops will give them to you. And lastly, we touched on the environment. And one thing I want to say, not about harming the environment, but here on Kauai, the waters in Hawaii are dangerous. And so you need to be mindful when you travel here to not go out when in doubt, don't go out, I guess is the saying we have. And it's a huge thing in the islands. We have highest probably in the world percentage of drownings. So we want you to be mindful of our environment in terms of how you handle yourself, but you need to be mindful of the environment here and the dangers when you go in the ocean here.
That is so true, Ronnie. Thank you very much. And that is another, reach out to us here at Living in Hawaii. You guys have any questions, you ever need any advice, and Ronnie's 100% right. If you're going into the ocean and you want to go in the water, if nobody else is in the water, that's probably a sign that you don't want to go in the water either. You want to sit safely back on the shore and watch 15 minutes, watch the waves, watch the sets, because you don't want to get yourself into a position that you can't get yourself out of. So I really want to thank you all for joining us here today. Again, Living in Hawaii, we are here for you folks. Anytime you have a question, please leave a comment. We're more than happy to get back to you. And we welcome you to just involve yourself in living in Hawaii and learn as much as you can about our lifestyle and our culture. And we will look forward to seeing you folks all again on our next show. Have a great aloha.
Thank you. Mahalo. Aloha.
Aloha.